God is faithful. I think it was Chuck Swindoll I was listening to yesterday. He said, this is not a story about Joseph's faith. We're mistaken because we present it that way. And, particularly in kid stories. It's not a story about Joseph's faith. It's a story about God's faithfulness. Welcome to the ReThink Podcast. We're going to talk about Joseph for a little bit, and we're done because I got to get out of here.
Here we go. All right. So
it's all about Jeff.
My friend from
Does
Kazakhstan.
this fit into the sermon?
Yeah.
Kazakhstan.
Less than 1%.
Between China and Russia.
Yeah. Used to be a part of the USSR. And
We got banned from there.
Was it the Beatles that did that song?
yeah, right. Less than 1% Christian.
Hey, wait, they can't see my face because of the mic stand.
Or can they?
Oh, second
two
angle.
angles.
There it is.
Give the people what they want, More of Jeff's face.
Got a haircut.
So here's what I thought would be fun, because I met with
too.
this missionary
Egyptian.
about 2 weeks ago. He brought some chocolates and desserts from Kazakhstan.
We know this. You gave them to Mandy for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, and these are the leftovers. So
These are the ones man didn't like.
Yeah.
Huh?
I thought I would bring one of each, and we could try it on the podcast and give the people what they want. They want to see our reactions to like real world stuff. So
So you brought.
They want to see
chocolates
our
from
reaction to Kazakhstanian chocolate.
yes,
I disagree.
I don't believe that.
all right.
They want to
so
see us eat jalapeno poppers.
That would be fun too. We can do
Or
that
Texas
on a different
Twinkies.
show. But I
What's
thought
a
this would
Texas
be fun.
Twinkie?
Oh my!
You've never had a
goodness.
Texas Twinkie? Come
Texas
on, man.
Twinkie. You first take a smoked brisket,
I
and
like where
then
this is headed.
and you slice it real thin, cover it with cream cheese, and then you smoke a jalapeno and you wrap the jalapeno
It
in the
is
middle of it.
absolutely
and you have a Texas Twinkie.
Phenomenal. All right, pick
This
one.
turned into
You got to pick one.
This is turning into
Just
a
throw me
cooking
one over. I want the
podcast.
I want the second one from Jeff.
This one,
That one.
That's actually like a piece of fish.
Jeff. Which one you want?
It's called the glaze. The glaze.
The second one from that side.
This one.
Are we doing this at the same time or just whenever
Although
we
these
get
are
it?
pretty good too.
Oh, you've cheated. You've had one before?
I've had all of them.
You
All right.
also got them from Michelle.
Kazakhstan.
Valentine's Day.
Yep.
Oh, I've seen this one before.
It looks like this.
Take a half a bite so you can see, because this one's filled. Raspberry.
This is not
Oh,
good.
this is coconut. This is awesome. I love coconut.
It's toffee.
Very good.
Coffee toffee.
I wish I
Thank
would
you.
have got that one.
Oh,
This one is really good.
Kazakhstan. Where's this from again?
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. That was excellent.
Anyway,
I'm surprised there was one of these left because I've been fishing them out.
I've been wondering. I've been looking for them. I was surprised I found one. You don't like that one?
nah.
I
Well,
like that one. The vanilla one.
ahead.
I just got to say, if Jeff White or Clay Wilson or Nathan Loker is watching, next
White's
week
having
we
surgery.
will review. Oh, Jeff's out then.
There's
Neither-
no
We'll,
way.
we'll review Texas Twinkies if you make them and bring them.
There's also no way
That's
Loker's listening to
right.
this.
Really,
Clay probably.
Clay, Texas
He's
Twinkies.
set it on the right track.
Hey, pray for my friend in Kazakhstan. There you go.
All right.
That he brings you more chocolate.
Yeah. I've eaten all the good stuff
You
he
wanna
brought.
tell us
said
what they're
1%.
doing there
You
since we're
started to
talking
say
about
1%.
Yeah,
Huh?
tell us what he's doing.
1% what?
1% Christian.
In Kazakhstan. What's the predominant faith?
Muslim or Islam.
Is he originally from there? Is she a national?
Oh, yeah.
No. So he grew up there. It's actually kind of rare. His dad was a pastor there.
Huh.
Yeah, that's pretty rare.
Right.
And he was part of a Baptist church for a long time. Baptist denomination had a presence there, missionary presence. And they actually 6 years ago, started doing house church stuff, which resembles a lot of our like life group type things. But that's kind of the model they moved to. And then,
Acts 2 type.
and then being intentional about being in the public space with their Christianity through business. So he does a coaching thing with a gym.
FCA.
Yeah. And he actually trains like power lifters, and he's got a guy that's competing in the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so he does this, and he's got all kinds of contacts through that. But they're very strategic because it is, frowned upon to
Right.
publicly evangelize. So they can talk about it within like a closed context, but to go out and evangelize is not allowed.
Right.
So they're
Probably can talk about it. They can't convert people.
correct.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're very just intentional about witnessing with their lives and through specific areas, and then doing house churches. So
It's awesome.
yeah, it's
So
incredible.
what happened historically was that the Christian empire, if we want to call it that, was split when the Muslim invasion from the south coming up out of Africa, kind of it split. So you have an east and west Christianity.
Yep.
And right up through the middle, and the conquest of the Islam Empire.
Yeah.
That's when that happened. That's why. Right up the middle, Islam.
All right.
Church history. That's a whole class. We don't have time for that.
That was fun.
We're talking about Joseph
You
coming out of Egypt. Not yet.
not yet. He's there.
So I'm not teaching this text. We're really trying to go from chapter 42 to 49.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't make it that far.
Yeah.
This
That's a
is
lot.
the worst
lot
assignment
to
of
cover.
scripture I think I've ever dealt with.
I
You're spoiled.
don't know if that's true.
No, here's why. Because
It's a little dramatic.
it's rough.
There's
There
a,
is
a major redemption story in this part.
I know, but there's so much information. I feel like I need hours to be able to
See, you're
fully
the only
get
one
there.
that thinks you need
I
hours.
know, I am the only
Everyone
one.
else is like 25
Joseph-
minutes or less.
Okay,
Joseph
David Platt.
cried. Joseph cried 3 times in this text. Is that
Right.
what you're going to try to do?
No. I don't have any brothers, so it doesn't affect
You know,
me.
I don't have any brothers either.
So give us a synopsis of the story, and you don't have 45 minutes to do so.
There we go.
Do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
You go ahead and I'll throw in some details that you're
I'm going to leave out a bunch of details
Right.
just to prove I can do it. You ready?
Ready? Go.
All right.
Hold
Joe,
on,
know-
hold on.
Trust me,
Hold
we
on.
know you can leave out details.
Oh, set a timer.
You ready? Yeah.
Set. Go.
All right, Joseph's number 2. There's a famine. After the second year of the famine, his brothers comes to him, wants some food because they're hungry. And he sees them. He gets triggered. He sends them to prison, leaves one in prison, sends the rest back, says, Dad, we got to go back with our younger brother. And they're like, oh, man, that's not going to work. And anyway, he convinces them to go back. And then they get before Joseph. Joseph kind of gives them the runaround again. And then Joseph reveals to them who he is. He provides for them. He forgives them, even despite they don't ask for forgiveness. He moves on. He saves the nation and moves his entire family into the promised land.
41 seconds, and he missed so much. But I don't know why you think you need hours.
That is Andrew Blunker. If you ever see him teach at children's church, that's what it is. So then they still have another 59 minutes
To eat
to
goldfish.
fill up the class time.
to eat goldfish.
And go read the rest. You'll figure it out. Yeah, there's,
I don't even
but
know what to
there's,
say.
I mean, that's
What
like,
story are you talking about?
Leave Jeff speechless.
did you know that Joseph put his brothers in prison? You act
For 3
surprised
days. He
whenever I
put him in there
said
for
that.
3 days.
3 days. Is that not interesting?
No, it's not interesting. It's
on
very
purpose.
strategic in the story.
Absolutely.
It's not interesting.
And then he keeps one back.
So this is the and
Reuben.
We have 3
Simon.
instances of him
Reuben
in a
goes
robe.
into prison.
No, Simon. I'm going to find it.
He takes
He
the oldest.
loses his robe of many colors. The brothers take it, the animal blood. He loses his robe when Potiphar's wife takes it.
Mm-hmm.
And he changes robes when Pharaoh says, take mine.
Yep.
Interesting.
So I think he's dealing with an identity thing here.
Absolutely.
And I'm ultimately going to get there about how God wants us.
It's his
just
brother
as we
Simon.
are.
His brother Simon in 42:36.
What's it say there?
This is when they went back. So their father
Simeon,
Jacob said to them,
isn't
"Oh, is
It
it
is
Simeon?
Simeon.
Sorry, Simeon."
I didn't know who Simon was. I was just
I
going to
was
play
sitting there
along.
going,
Simon
Father
Peter.
Jacob said to
Simon
them,
Peter,
I was
stay
like, I
back.
think you got that.
"You have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, and now Simeon is no more as well. And now you want to take Benjamin, and everyone's against me." Reuben stood up for him, but Simeon's who he, not Simon, Simeon's who he kept in prison
All right.
when they went back.
See,
For 3 days.
I learned that.
Because I'm not preaching all 7 chapters. That's why.
It's impossible.
Right. I thought one of the
Moses
things
did
that's
it.
kind of cool is that Canaan and Egypt are 380 miles apart.
How long a journey would that
5
take?
to 7 days of walking
Fast pace.
at a fast pace.
but not at a
No,
Israelite pace.
What'd you say? How many miles?
380 miles.
You can do that in 5 to 7 days?
I don't think so.
That's what
No.
they said.
There's no way.
So
Anyway.
And
20
they got carts and stuff and wagons.
20 miles a day is the
Grain.
average travel in the ancient world.
380?
That's what it said. Yeah,
That's wrong.
380.
That's like a marathon.
76 miles a day?
Yeah,
There's no way.
nah.
No.
That's
20
what this thing said.
20 miles is like that's a agreed upon standard of ancient travel.
That's
Because
a
you're not
long
just
walk.
you're not just walking by
Say
yourself
580 or 380?
with the water
380.
bottles along the tables as you go.
That's 19 days.
That's what I was thinking. 3 weeks.
It's like they got to stop
Yeah,
and bake
yeah,
bread.
there you go.
I mean, the whole
3 weeks at a fast pace. I mean, 20 miles in a day is quite a bit.
No, you can do 20 miles.
Well, but they're also hauling, like they're empty, but going back, they're hauling grain and stuff like that. So,
So
like,
you're slower.
But
silver,
not
for sure.
only
silver.
But
yeah,
okay,
and
so
they're silver, you're correct.
their
Silver both ways.
famines hit the land, so they're hungry, and then they got to walk 380 miles
Yeah.
In the desert.
in the desert.
So the deal was, and I think you
Not that
missed a
that's
key
really important,
detail in your quick synopsis. When do they know Joseph is Joseph?
Only when he reveals,
He reveals
himself.
himself after the second visit.
Yep. The first visit, I think, whenever it says that Joseph
After he-
recognizes them, and that's whenever it's like
Can you imagine?
Actually,
though, like
39 years old. So,
it's been 22 years.
Yep.
And you are the man who is in second in charge of the whole land, and you're the one divvying out food, and then you've named your son Manasseh, which is
the Lord forgets.
the Lord has made me forget all my troubles.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because that's how you know if you haven't forgot your troubles. You name your kids, I've forgotten my troubles. But he forgets. Right. So he's been trying to forget all the things that have been done to him for the last 22 years.
I
And
think
then
there's a
all of
lesson right there,
sudden-
man. Like
Oh, yeah.
forgiveness is a process. It's not one and done.
He's not even forgiven when he sees him. Like he's angry.
Well, no, he's put him in a
He
spot.
speaks
so
harshly to him. That's
Yeah.
very
Now,
specific.
Haven't you ever, like, you forgive somebody until you haven't?
Right.
Till it
'Cause
rekindles all that again.
Yeah, until you see them again and it comes fresh. And I think the devil then goes, turn the knife that was removed.
Well, if you remember, like the second
you gotta
journey,
go. You got to forgive again.
the second journey, they come back, they bring Benjamin, and then he actually sends them away. And what does he do? He
tricks
puts
them.
the cup, his cup, into Benjamin's.
Which
Joseph's
He
bag.
has the.
So
the-
then they think they're in super trouble.
He
He
has
comes
a
back,
servant do
and
it.
that's when he reveals himself.
Well, they're caught now because they can't go back in famine and die.
Right.
They can't stay here and die in
Yep.
guilt.
So just a little thing about the cup, which I'm not going to get to. This is one of those pieces I can't get
Yeah.
to. But the cup was used for divination in Egypt. And so like the fact that he puts it in there to see if they're going to like, we're going to see if we can find out what our future is or, anything
Which
like that.
then that leads to Judah. Mm-hmm. And this is the guy who 22 years ago sells his brother into slavery, and then he goes, "Hey, Dad, I tell you what, I'll watch out for Benjamin." And then all of a sudden, Benjamin's got the cup in his bag, and execution in their mind is what's coming next. And what does Judah do? He steps forward and he's like, "My life for
Yeah.
this."
So let's back up for a moment because we've teased at this for a while. But chapter 37 is the start of the story of Joseph. Chapter 38 is the story of Judah and Tamar.
Right.
Right. And that she dressed as she's daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Dressed as a prostitute. He takes her. Oh, gosh. And we wonder, why is this story included? It's included to show us, I think, how far he has come. Mm-hmm. And he's the one that the promise comes through.
Yeah,
The promise
life
to
restored.
Abraham comes through. Right? This guy who sleeps with his daughter-in-law is a prostitute and eventually offers himself in place of Benjamin. Mm-hmm. He's come full circle, which is what God asks of us. Come back.
I just thinking about Joseph sitting there and divvying out food, and then all of a sudden, what he had tried to forget shows up right in front of his face. And it's like, I feel like if I was him, the emotion would just drop out of my stomach.
Yeah.
Well, it does.
It
They're
does.
here.
I mean,
Like he gets angry.
Well, not only that, it talks
Not-
about him
yeah,
having to
he's
go
hurt.
seclude himself
Yeah.
because he can't control his emotions, and he
Yeah.
didn't want them to see that. Even where he composes himself and washes his face before he goes
So 3
back.
times he goes and cries. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he goes away and composes himself. He doesn't want
Is the
them to-
third time the one he does with his brothers?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's when the door shut and
Yep.
he's just within.
And it's so
it says
loud
that
that
the Egyptians
the
heard
Egyptian
him.
hear him
Yeah.
and Pharaoh
Yeah.
hears about it.
Right. Just,
Yeah.
man,
I think
radical.
So, I think this message, this section I do think it's about a forgiveness, and it's not even, I think forgiveness is most powerful whenever you are able to forgive almost like for yourself. I think that's actually where the grace of God shows up, is when you understand, it's the Lord's Prayer, I think, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Like, we understand that our debt is so great. And
Matthew
because
6.
that we are able to forgive others.
And when we do that, we are the one
who is blessed.
Yeah, and set free.
Yeah.
So when we release the right to retaliate, which I think is a great definition for forgiveness, when we release the right to retaliate, we set ourselves free.
Yeah.
I reread this story, chapter 42, verse 21. The brothers go down to Egypt, and it says, they said to one another, surely we are being punished. We are being punished because of our brother. Well, they haven't forgiven themselves either. So they're living in guilt.
And they also, they never apologize. Because a lot of us with forgiveness, we're like, you know what? I will forgive when that person says they're sorry. That's not, Joseph doesn't wait.
Nope.
Well, catch us on Joseph, and along those same lines, chapter 45, he's before him, he just revealed him, so they're scared. Like they realize he has all the authority.
Right.
And this is what Joseph says in 45, verse 7. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on the earth and to save your lives by the grace deliverance. So then it is not you who sent me, verse 8, here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of the entire household and ruler of Egypt. And so
he's teasing with chapter 50, verse 20.
Yeah, right, it is. But I mean, it's going back to his brothers and bringing that for. He's forgiven. Or at this point, you don't see that chapters earlier, but here he recognized that it was God who sent him here ahead of them.
So here's the thing that I think transfers really clearly to us, and this is a strong statement, and I'm going to make it on Sunday. You can't have God and still be in control, because his brothers are viewing Joseph as the one who's in control, second in command of all of Egypt. And Joseph comes to a point himself and realizes, I can't faithfully continue to walk with God if I'm the one in control. That's where the grace and forgiveness comes, and that's why he's able to make that statement like that, because he understands that actually letting go is grabbing on to what God has for him to move forward. And that's the only way that's happening. And this is true of us. The only way we can grab on to what God wants for us is to let go of the things that we think we have control of. When we surrender, when we bring that to God and he takes it, that's when we will truly experience the power and the blessing of what God has to offer for us.
And in Joseph's life, you saw that chapter 39, so 10, 20 years earlier, when it says the Lord was with him, and then it also says those around him, so Potiphar, and then the captain of the guard, they saw that the Lord was with him.
Yep.
So, that's pretty interesting.
I was sitting there thinking this week, though, after everything that Joseph has gone through, from the pit to slavery to jail, he has been through the ringer. And I started thinking about my own story, and I've not experienced those things. And so things like that, and there are people that they have some really deep hurt because somebody's done something to them or said something about them. And so to talk about forgiveness through the lens of what I've experienced is nothing compared to what other people have experienced or Joseph experienced. This is a deep understanding of the freedom that comes from God and the plan that God's working out that he extends to his brothers. It's just unbelievable. Because it's how do you explain that to a person who's really been through some really rough times?
It's this weird dichotomy, because the more difficult of the situation you've been through, and I think this is whenever, Paul's talking about, if you've been forgiven a little, you'll forgive a little, but if you've been forgiven a lot, you'll be able to. It's this, when you come to the understanding of the grace and the mercy and the presence of God in your life, the deeper the hurt, the greater the impact God has in your life.
One of the things I want to talk about Sunday is like the principle of forgive and forget.
Yeah, it's not biblical.
It's not. Joseph never, he forgives his brothers, but he doesn't forget about what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we talk about forgiveness, we're not saying that you have to forget it.
Right.
It actually makes the forgiveness that much more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because like you're willing to let that stuff go on the wayside.
He extends grace, but with boundaries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a remembrance there, and I think we've done a disservice to people because that's what has been taught. You're supposed to forget.
Just
Act
move
like
on.
nothing ever. Yeah, God does that
Yeah.
as far as the east is from the west, but
Your sin is gone as far as the east is from the west, but it's completely remembered in the finished work of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So like that is the piece there though, because it's not
As
like
in on
God
the cross, he
yeah,
covers it all. He
yeah,
took-
like
he
God
took
didn't
it.
forget it and just like, oh, we're gonna pretend like it didn't happen. No, he sent
It's been
Jesus
paid
to the
for.
cross because of what even is to come.
Yep.
And so that's the thing is like it's not just about moving on. It's about laying down and surrender. All of us, it's like we can't be fully committed to God and still retain these pieces. It's like I'll serve God as long as I'll follow Jesus as long as it just doesn't work because we're hanging on to something that God doesn't want us to hang on to.
Well, not only are we hanging on to something, but something's holding on to us.
Yeah, and it
can change you.
it's like walking through mud.
Well, we all know people who we got to be careful what we say around them because they're angry.
Yeah.
Because something's been done to them or they've been through a rough time. And so that has taken over them.
Mm-hmm.
And they won't let it go.
And there's different ways people respond to that. Some people take it like a victim mentality.
Right.
Some people lash out in anger. Some people retreat. Some people go into like complete, freak out control mode, all these different things. All of those are symptoms of like it's focused on self at some level and not focused on God. I think we spend a lot of our times dealing with battles in the wrong area. Like we're fighting battles of life that are just misdirected, and it leaves us with no energy to actually fight the battles we need to fight. Ephesians talks about our battle, our struggle is against,
Not against flesh and
not
blood.
against flesh and blood, but the evil spiritual powers of this world. And it's like when we start viewing things in the lens of God and staying close to God, we realize that maybe our energy is not fixing another person, fixing a situation, but our energy is spent towards staying close to God. Like that might be a better use of our energy of staying close in the will of God. Okay.
how come his brothers
Agreed.
didn't recognize Joseph?
Well, he speaks through an interpreter.
And he's
He
all
is-
shaved up.
Well, I was gonna
Egyptians
say-
were smooth
Yeah, I was
skinned.
going to say that, and even when, was that chapter 41, chapter 42, when he goes before Pharaoh, what does it say he does? They shaved his face and shaved him. So, like, culturally, though, like, they would have had long beards.
Yeah,
and even though
Hebrews.
there's a bow, but like 20 years past.
From the law,
Right.
Yeah.
men are to have facial hair.
And so, like, even though he was 17 when he left, you got 20-year span, but then when he's second in command, he's got to be all decked out,
Oh, yeah.
shaved, and the language, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, shaved
Bald
head,
head.
too. I didn't think about shaved
Yeah,
head.
they shaved their entirety of their head.
Really?
Yep.
Yep. So
Yeah.
all Egyptian men were,
Like God intended.
and so
Not really, actually.
Are you actually Egyptian?
let's assess this.
He
with-
looked like an Egyptian, and he walked like an Egyptian.
And he talked like an Egyptian.
Oh,
the Egyptian idea was that it made them timeless because you don't
it
your
aged.
aging doesn't show as
no
much.
gray hair. And, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I hear you.
I
Like
didn't,
if I shaved my white goatee off, I'd be 30 again.
I didn't shave my head for a couple of days, like last Friday and Saturday, and I was putting my son to bed, and he put his hands on my head, and he said, "Dad, you have small gray hairs on your head." I was like, "That's because of you. Go to bed." But yeah, he conceals his identity because he's still wrestling with it.
Yep.
He thought he forgot and he could just shove it down. He can't.
He's got to be processing what he's going to do too.
Oh,
because
yeah.
if you got to think about all the authority he has,
Oh, yeah.
like,
I mean,
being human,
The
like,
options
how many
are
of us would be
endless.
like,
he
oh
is
man,
in
what
total,
you did to me?
he's in total control.
Yes.
He controls their life and death.
I think
at
that's
this
why he
moment.
waits so long to reveal himself, because he hasn't decided in his heart what he's doing yet.
Right.
So, I mean, I think
I
that's
think
exactly
that's because of them.
Yeah.
He wants to see where they're at.
Yep.
They're hungry.
They're hungry, but have they changed?
Yeah. I don't know if he ever knows, but
Well, in some ways they haven't
Well,
changed.
but
You
he
can
has a
tell at the
desire
end
to
of the
see his
story.
father. I mean,
he asked if Dad's still alive.
Yep.
And I think it's crazy too that they say, "No, we're all sons of one man, but one of us is no more." They're telling Joseph all about Joseph. He's like,
Yeah.
one of them's no more because he's right here.
Yeah.
So they have. That's a part of the reason they don't understand who he is because they have absolutely
Yeah.
no expectation that the guy who's second in command now.
well, why would
of
they
the
even
country-
think that?
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, he was a slave.
Yeah. And now
The
they're-
presumption is he's dead.
Right.
right. And what did they do? They're like, I knew it. This is God paying us back.
Yeah.
Like, it's what we did to Joseph. He's within earshot of them.
I know it says he heard them
Yeah.
because they were speaking in Hebrew
Yeah.
and assumed he didn't know the language. Yeah.
I was thinking about like when you go to a Mexican restaurant with you.
Oh, yeah.
That's the first thing that popped in my mind. Like they're talking in Spanish, but you know what they're saying.
Walmart is so much better though, because when you get behind a Hispanic family and my whole family's there and they don't clue, and then all of a sudden Kelly starts speaking to them Spanish, and they're like, "What did we just say?"
That's the moment that came in my mind. That has nothing to do with the story, but
Yeah,
it's crazy.
it's fun though. Anybody wants to go to Walmart after?
Yeah, he's still wrestling with what's he gonna do.
Dad comes down. Israel comes down. Jacob comes down. The whole entourage comes down to Egypt. What's his last request of them?
Take me out whenever I die.
Don't leave me
Yep.
here.
Yep.
Don't leave me here. Why?
Because the promised land, going back, and that was both Jacob and Joseph.
The promise to God.
Yeah, right. Joseph,
right.
yeah.
That's next week.
Yep.
But to me, that is a part that drives this story. It's the dream that Joseph had that, although he had to question at times, how's this going to happen? Is this going to happen? At some point, and it happens in what, chapter
45.
Well, actually, in 42:10, they call him my Lord.
Yeah.
when
They
come
bow
before.
down.
They bow down to him.
45,
But Dad's
I
not
think.
there yet.
Right.
That was
Right.
the second dream.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so
That's what causes him to weep like uncontrollably.
Yeah.
Is when
somehow
that dream
along the
comes
way,
through.
Yep.
yeah,
And
somehow
it says that he recalled it.
God is faithful. It's, I think it was Chuck Swindoll I was listening to yesterday. He said, this is not a story about Joseph's faith. We're mistaken because we present it that way. And, particularly in kid stories, it's not a story about Joseph's faith. It's a story about God's faithfulness. So he made him a promise and he brought it to fruition.
Yep.
Well, then even going back,
That's who he does.
Back we were talking about taking the bones back. What did God tell Jacob before he went? He said, "I'm going to make you a great nation in Egypt, and I will bring you back to the promised land."
Yeah, a renewed promise.
Another little rabbit trail. We don't have to go down, but Jacob's name is changed to Israel. I know. To
Got the
Israel.
rabbit before it hit the trail.
We don't have to,
32.
but we're going to. Jeff's supposed to leave.
Because he talked about
I
identity.
got to go eat lunch.
Okay.
Curly tail.
But
Ooh.
Jacob's name is changed to Israel in chapter 32 of this story. Joseph you're right, identity has been an issue all along the way. Now he's Egyptian, and now he
got a new
reveals
name, right?
himself. Yeah.
He marries an Egyptian priest's daughter. Any rabbit trail there?
Yeah, there's all kinds of rabbit trails.
What is it?
It's one of prominence in the culture, but then also spiritual guiding of the nation.
Whether
So-
Andrew actually knows this or not, just because he used
I
big words
say-
like that, you follow it.
No,
People believe it.
Confident answer.
it's
right or
crazy.
wrong. It's confident.
He should have never been in that position, but God brings him there because once again, the whole storyline is God's sovereignty, His promise, and like he's the one. God is the one doing all of the
Right.
work all along the way, and this is so cool. Is Joseph gets to respond in the circumstance? Is he going to worship, or is he going to run and flee? Like these are the decisions in God's sovereignty working through. Is how will Joseph respond to the moment, whether high or low?
What does this story change or affirm for you?
I don't have to be in control. God's in
You
control.
tend to want to be in control.
Yeah, about everything.
I think it's cool, like regardless of circumstances, in that mindset of God always being in control, like you think in the nation of Israel, like he saved the entire nation because Pharaoh had such respect for Joseph, how Joseph has saved Egypt. Now he's offering Jacob and his family anything they want. The promised land. He said, even says when you come, don't bring your possessions because the
we'll
best
take
of
care of it.
Egypt will be yours.
Yep.
And so like through that, like you really look at, as you map out the history of Israel from the beginning till Jesus coming. Like this is just one of those predominant things where God provided, even when they thought because of their sin, because of their fault, there was no hope, God was still there and came through in his promise.
The text that came to my mind was Paul says in Ephesians 3, God is able to do immeasurably more than you ask or imagine.
That's exactly right.
Matt, anything affirmed or brought to light for you?
Deliverances from my issues is really my choice to lay it down. God's made a way, and I got to decide, am I going to lay it down? Because really, I think that's what this is about. He lays it down. He lets God take it.
For me, it's a story of perseverance. Because I just hate waiting. Right? You hate waiting. And the tendency is to try to figure out how to make it happen. And this story is God. Right? God made a promise. God makes a way. Just be patient.
And so when you say that, Jeff, like how long a time period are we talking? It was 17 to 39, is that
Yeah.
right?
He's 22 years.
Yeah,
22
that's
years.
insane.
Right? We think we've got to do it today.
Yeah. If we got to wait a week, that's like, oh my goodness.
In chapter 32, I'll stop.
32?
32?
42.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
in chapter
32.
32.
Oh, I know where
when
you're going.
Jacob is wrestling with
Jacob is the dad in the story. Israel.
he's wrestling with the
With God.
angel or with God, right?
How does he not lose? That's what
He
I don't
says, the angel or God says, let me go. And Jacob says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. The only way Jacob is blessed, though, is whenever he lets go. And I think that's a picture here for Joseph in this moment. The only way, the true blessing, where a nation is going to be saved, he's going to cling to the promise of the dream that's been given, is if he lets go of this last thing in his life, and
That
that's
he has
forgiving his
control over.
brothers.
You might want to work that into the teaching.
If you want to be blessed, you got to let go.